Hey guys, so sorry about that. That is obviously one of the issues with live streaming. Sometimes things don't quite go to plan. And yeah, I had a little bit of a glitch with the streaming software, so obviously, yeah, had to restart. But yeah, we're back again now. Obviously, look, disappointing derby day. Let me know how you felt about the game. But there's a fair amount of things to talk about from a tactical point of view, which is why you're all here. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Now, first half, I was actually pretty pleased with United's performance, and we've seen genuine improvements from things we weren't doing quite so well just a few weeks prior. And the main area I think United have done much better in the first half today compared to other games is the pressing. So what we saw quite a lot of times was when City got the ball back to Ederson from these sorts of positions. Obviously, everyone knows by now Guardiola likes to have his centre-back split, and he's had all that influence on English football, as everyone says. And then what United would do is, as City get their fullbacks nice and wide so they can create a nice big shape, stretch the pitch to play out, United would have Rashford often pressing the keeper, Greenwood going marking the centre half his side, Pogba making a nuisance of himself on his side with Shaw and Wan-Bissaka pressing up really high on the City fullbacks. And that was key because it gave them no easy short out pass, which is what they like, so they can build from deep. And then what happened was, it's quite good to see, because City like to play through the middle of the pitch, obviously, like anyone does, because it's the most valuable space in the pitch. But they have their defensive midfield players, Rodri and Fernandinho, dropping in to try and receive that ball, chauffeur it, and be able to turn on the ball and play forwards. Try and get that ball from Ederson, turn and play that ball straight forward to the attackers. But what United were doing really well in the first half especially is Pogba coming in off this left-hand side, and Bruno Fernandes were really good at nipping in just in front of that City midfield player as they look to take that ball from Ederson, winning that ball back. And then all of a sudden, United have got the edge of the ball on the edge of the City box, with City centre-backs scrambling to recover from those wide positions. And it gave us a few good chances in that first half. And it was really nice to see not just one or two players pressing and winning the ball back individually, but the whole team being coordinated and going forward to press the ball well. Now, obviously, when you do this, you do leave yourselves a bit open to the ball down the line, and it was interesting to see how United dealt with that as well. Because obviously, in recent games, especially when Wan-Bissaka gets baited out forwards to try and press the opposition fullback, that ball down the line is often on for Lindelof, often on for their winger, leaving them one-on-one with Lindelof. And far too many times he's been too weak in those situations, not willing to make a foul out wide, and he's let the player go past him, and it creates a goal-scoring chance. So it was nice to see that in this game, it was a good mixture between Lindelof sometimes going wide and covering, with Maguire coming across to cover as well, and then Fred dropping into the back three. Or, sometimes, as you might expect, Scott McTominay going and dropping in there instead. So it was nice to see that we had that aspect of it thought through as well, and we covered that particular area nicely. Now, we do often see from United, thanks for the comment, Oluyomi, very nice to see you're enjoying it. So we do see oftentimes from United that we do struggle getting outdone numerically in those situations when players do go across and cover. But because City were more conservative today, because they went with the 4-2-3-1, they only had 4 attacking players up front. Obviously, Gabriel Jesus and De Bruyne, Mahrez and Sterling behind. So it wasn't so much of an issue. And by the time the ball could be worked out to the opposite side, normally Luke Shaw was able to recover and get back into position. So United's pressing was the main thing I was really happy with in that first half. And yep, as I said, because City only went with one player in between the lines rather than having two, which they sometimes do, it was much easier to defend against. Now, in many ways, the way both teams set up for this game was what you expect from a typical big game. When both managers don't want to lose the game, both set up with a really sort of defensive 4-4-2. Obviously, Ole set up in that way for United quite often recently. It was just the way that both teams did it. So Guardiola as well for City, even though he knows technically his team are superior to United. If they wanted to keep the ball and have 75% possession, they could make a good stab at doing that. But he was really wary of the counter-attack, so he didn't set up like that at all. And what this led to, particularly in the second half, but we did see elements of it in the first, was that you have basically just one team sort of goes forward, you go and attack with your 4 players, 4-on-6, overload for the defensive team. So it makes it really difficult. So yeah, the players string a few passes together, maybe get a half-assed shot from the edge of the box, and it doesn't really go together. It's not joined up. There's no flowing attacking play. There's no runs from deep trying to get into the box, making sure that you're getting the bodies into the penalty area beyond the defence and trying to get that final shot beyond the keeper. We didn't see enough of that today. What we did see in the first half, particularly from United going forward, was Pogba having some nice link-up from that left wing position. He was drawing Kyle Walker infield, he was drawing Fernandinho or Rodri out wide, and it was giving space for Bruno Fernandes. So maybe that is something that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs to look at for the future. Declan Till says, that game lacked a word, simple as, United could have won that, but we just didn't go for it. Genuinely frustrating. This is our season in a nutshell. So close, yet so far. Dec, I agree with you, mate. It's a difficult one. I see your frustration. The game was there for the taking, especially in that first half. I felt we could have committed more players forward because our players defensively, Shaw and Wan-Bissaka, if there's one thing they're both decent at, it's recovering defensively. Not necessarily being sort of in a position so that someone can make a nice run past them, but it's making those recoveries. Wan-Bissaka's good at recovery challenges, so's Luke Shaw. So we could have possibly taken a little bit more of a risk. And this is something we're going to come on to. When the ball was in wide areas, looking for a cross into the box, we didn't see players from United's side getting into the box. Obviously, City didn't really do it either because they weren't taking risks. But from a United team, I want to see us getting bodies into the box. Whether it's Fernandes, who can score headers like the one we saw against Everton, Rashford, who's obviously a presence in the box, not the most sort of attacking in his movement. He doesn't always go and attack the ball, attack the space, but he's another body in the box. Greenwood should have been in there, Paul Pogba should have been in there. And I'd like to see Scott McTominay getting in and around the box as well. Because we know Scott McTominay is really good at scoring low expected goal, sort of driven shots from just on the edge of the box. When he picks up the ball on the edge of the box, think back to Arsenal at Old Trafford last year. McTominay picked up the ball on the edge of the box, really nice drive into the top corner of the goal. And he's obviously the same against City in the previous Manchester derby before lockdown at Old Trafford. So it would have been nice to see players getting a little bit higher into the box. In terms of United's other attacking strategies that we saw all game, especially in the first half, and I mean, it was the only thing we had really in the second half, even though I guess we didn't really attack much. But far too often, we see when United get pushed back a little bit, Fernandes ends up in positions out on the left, whether it's Fernandes or Pogba, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes Greenwood was doing it on the right as well. But what was happening was City had a really high line, so there's obviously a lot of space in between their defensive line and Ederson here to hit. So those balls from Greenwood or Bruno Fernandes, what they were doing, they're receiving that ball out wide, turning backwards towards their own goal, and then sort of almost blind, hitting a reverse pass back in field, looking for a runner, whether it's Rashford here or Greenwood on the far side, getting beyond that defence and looking for that 1v1 with Ederson. But whether it's tiredness, whether it's mental fatigue, maybe even just not anticipating what's coming from Bruno, which is disappointing because it happens so often. Bruno's, in many ways, it's one of his signature passes. We needed to see players making those breaks beyond the defensive line and making every effort to try their best and get beyond to score a goal. And it just wasn't happening, which was pretty frustrating to see. Now, in the second half, look, Man City had a lot of dominance, and I'm not going to spend too much time on the second half here because fundamentally it wasn't that interesting from anyone's point of view, but tactically there are a few good things to note. Now, obviously we had that 4-2-3-1 in the first half, and normally when United defend, we go back into a 4-4-2. So we have the wingers sort of sit back into a flat four, and then Fernandes and whoever's up top obviously just form the two up front. Now, in this game, for whatever reason, we saw in the second half especially more of a 4-2-3-1 defensively, which when we're in a deep block is not something we normally see. So we saw, obviously, Fred and McTominay doing their jobs, and then Pogba, for whatever reason, was drifting infield, playing really close to Fernandes. So Fernandes was sometimes out on the left, sometimes not, but it seemed to me that Pogba got frustrated, and it was hurting the team shape. And what it meant was that because Pogba and Fernandes were often in these areas here, it allowed City to have a lot of possession and an easy outball down the right-hand side for Kyle Walker, and especially when Ferran Torres came on. So what he was doing really well, Ferran Torres, was holding his width, dragging Luke Shaw out, and dragging Fred, therefore, into that gap between Shaw and Maguire, which meant Kevin De Bruyne had a little bit more space to run the game behind United's midfield. So Pogba's positioning in that second half was something to talk about, and it was really frustrating to see that, you know, once again, whether it's him getting frustrated, whether it's tactical instructions from Ole, I don't know, but it really didn't help anyone in this game. So it was a little bit annoying to see that. And it didn't help us at all. Gave City the chance to create a ball shape around United and make it difficult for us to play out. And that, for me, was where we went wrong in that second half. That's where we started to struggle. And even though when Martial came, personally, I was expecting Martial to come on for Pogba, not Greenwood. But when he did come on, nothing really changed. And although United got up the pitch a bit towards the end, it was always going to be difficult once we got into that rhythm of being in that defensive shape, walking from place to place, just doing everything to shut City out. We expended all our energy and it proved too difficult to go up the other end and find a winner. Now, looking at your comments, let me know down below if there's anything you want me to sort of talk about, anything you want me to read out. Deck says again, Wan-Bissaka week on week is getting exposed. Even if we don't concede, it's not always his fault. But geez, it's happening every game, and please stop playing Marcus. He's evidently injured. On Rashford, fair enough. He wasn't making those runs. Whether that's injury or not, I don't know. But I think people overlook sometimes how lazy Rashford can be at times. He doesn't make the run unless he's guaranteed to get the pass. He doesn't make anywhere near as many runs as you'd expect from a proper striker, which is really frustrating. So maybe he's injured, maybe he's not, but he's not putting in the effort, I don't think, that we expect from him at times, Marcus Rashford. In terms of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, do completely agree. He does get exposed a hell of a lot down that side, especially positionally. Now, he made some really nice recoveries against Sterling. Sterling must be sick of coming up against Wan-Bissaka. But we see so often Wan-Bissaka switches off when his man gets a run on him. Sometimes he's deeper than the rest of the defence, so he's playing the man on side, and then he fails to react, fails to recover. And it's just disappointing. It's frustrating because it's the same mistakes every single game. The other thing we see from Wan-Bissaka, if you've watched my videos before, you'll know because I've been mentioning it pretty much every week, is that when there's a 1-2 involving Wan-Bissaka, he gets caught every time. That ball goes in there to the fullback. Normally, Wan-Bissaka is when Wan-Bissaka's pushed up, when he's pressing high. That ball goes down the line. Lindelof doesn't manage to stop that ball getting played. And when the fullback goes, he just leaves Wan-Bissaka for dead. He reacts way too slowly and then just jogs back, he recovers back, even though that's a really dangerous chance. He's got to do everything to sprint back and shut that chance off at its source before the fullback can get the cross into the box. So yes, Wan-Bissaka is frustrating me. His pressing is suspect at times, yeah, I do agree there. But I think today it was nice to see that he was getting high up the pitch and there was a structure behind him to cover when he did go high. Whether it was Lindelof or whether it was McTominay, someone was always watching that ball down the line, which is what we need to see if Wan-Bissaka's playing that role. Thanks, Siabonga, for your comment there. Fair enough. So, hope you've enjoyed the stream. Obviously, a disappointing derby. Nice that we've come away with a point. And until next time, thank you for watching and goodbye.